Hi, it's Marnie. So, have you ever opened a new tab at 11 p.m. to Google something like teaching jobs near me, or looked on LinkedIn, what jobs are available, or started fantasizing about becoming a product reviewer on Yelp and making your fortune that way? Um, Me too. This video is for the moments in your life when you're one click away from just blowing it all up, quitting it all, not because you failed, but because you're evolving and there's no roadmap about how to do that. I want to tell you a story about a night I almost gave up everything that I built, my business, my dream life. Um, I call it my Portugal moment. It was the moment where everything looked good on paper, um, on the outside, but I was quietly falling apart on the inside. If you've ever been there, like burned out, doubting yourself, ready to throw in the towel, um, but trapped in the reality of financial insecurity, responsibility. I want to share the checklist that I now use to figure out if it's actually time to quit, or it's just time to tell the truth. So stay with me to the end because I'm absolutely going to give you that checklist. Um, so let's start with this. What happens is when we have built something so intentionally, a career, a relationship, a family, um, and it stops feeling good on the inside. Um, it's overwhelming, right? Because for me, the feeling was like, I just should suck it up, stick it out. Like, how can I make this work? Looking for strategies, hacks, like, how can I just get through this? And that's when I realized, like, I'm living from a place of fear and desperation, not inspiration and creation. And it felt hard because I felt like I had failed on myself. I had failed the people that I could let down by even thinking these things. And I felt a lot of shame. Um, but I think that what most people miss is this: most of us don't quit because we failed. And this is so important. We want to quit because we're evolving. And no one ever gave us a process for how to make decisions when what we have built no longer matches who we are becoming. And in midlife, we are becoming something very different than the person that designed the life that we're now living. So we confuse growth, this need to grow and evolve, with collapse. We confuse our exhaustion with needing to end something. And our brains, right, are trying to protect us. And so all they know is to go binary, right, which is, should I stay or should I go? All or nothing, blow it up or suck it up. Let me explain why our brains sort of push the panic button. So here's an interesting fact. Nearly 70% of professionals say that they have considered walking away from their career. So if that feels something that you've thought about, only a fraction of those actually do it and have a real plan in place. Worse than that, studies show that 80% of those people who make a big change without actually going through a deep reflective process feel just as stuck, or more so, 18 months later. But here's what's really happening. When we get overwhelmed, our brain defaults to this binary threat-based thinking that is designed for survival, not clarity. And so the part of our brain, the fight or flight part of our brain, the amygdala, hijacks our ability to think from a higher level, like our prefrontal cortex, the executive function part of our brain, kind of tunes out. The amygdala, just like a 2-year-old, is like driving the car of your life. And it makes these decisions that feel like this is the only way out. And when we add in feelings of shame, fear of failure, and our performance addiction and need to control everything, we're completely shutting ourselves off from our deeper wisdom and our truth and the information that will actually lead us to the decision that is best for us. And that's why most people end up staying in a life that they've outgrown and just sucking it up, or quitting something prematurely and then regretting it. So let me tell you what I do now when I want to quit, because there are moments, because life is lifing, when I want to just throw it all in a suitcase and disappear. But instead of panic quitting or pretending I'm fine, I pause and I go through these steps. And there's 3 parts to this process. Number 1 is what I call holographic thinking. So most of us try to make decisions with just one filter. And for the people that are probably watching this video, most of you are relying on logic. You're trying to think your way into or out of your situation. For some people, it's emotion, right? They're just basing it on an emotional thing, like, I can't take it anymore, right? This just like, this feeling where we're suffocating. And some of us just make an intuitive decision, or try to. But what I want to teach you is what I call holographic thinking. And that's where we invite all 3 of these really important elements to the table. Number 1 is logic. So logic is looking at the data, not the drama, right? So it's separating the data from the emotion, the story. So what does the data say? What are the facts in the situation? Looking at questions like, is this actually a sustainable thing? Looking at your finances, looking at your cushion, like really getting all the data in place from a place of objective thinking without making that data mean anything, and simply gaining clarity, right? By asking questions. That's why the pause is really important. The second piece of it, right, is then, and I would do this like not at the same time. I would like let the data collection period happen. And then I would focus intentionally on like, okay, what's the emotion? What am I feeling around this? Is there fear? Am I avoiding? Am I feeling anxious? Am I feeling burned out? Is there sadness? If you're angry, often there is fear and sadness underneath that. Is there something deeper going on? Is this a part of an unresolved experience from my past, not necessarily even your childhood? Are you transferring an experience that you saw from a mentor or someone else who raised you, or a teacher or someone in your life, and you're taking that and projecting it onto yourself? Are you rebelling against something that you saw in your life? Are you drawn to doing something similar because of the need for approval, or love, or acceptance, or belonging? We really want to parse through all these emotions. And this is so that we can actually unpack and self-regulate the nervous system and get that amygdala to kind of calm down, so that our true emotional self at the highest part of who we are can actually unpack all the emotions around this decision. For me, this was a huge, huge piece. It always is. It's to unpack those pieces where I'm reacting to something rather than responding. And then finally, like the next piece is to really have a practice in place where you can connect to your inner wisdom, your knowing, your intuition, your higher self, your divine self, universe, whatever you call it. And really listen, like, does this decision feel resonant or aligned? Here's the thing: things that make us sad, things that we're scared of, things that may look a certain way on paper, intuitively, like, we can know that this just doesn't feel aligned for me right now, even if it makes sense on paper, right? And again, you're not going to just say, okay, well, my intuition said this, so that's all it is, right? You want to really honor and connect into that wisdom. And having a practice to do that is really, really important. meditation, journaling, thinking about some really high quality questions that really will serve you so that you can make these decisions. So in my book, in the last appendix, there's like 122 of these like wisdom seeking journaling questions that you can help yourself. And I'll put a link here so you can get the book. But, really asking, and one of my favorite ones from the book is, what is it that the problem I'm pretending to have to avoid the real problem I have? Journal on that one, right? Like that's a powerful, powerful way to connect to our inner wisdom, to our intuition. So if all three of those things, logic, emotion, intuition, agree, it feels usually ultimately like a full body yes. If they're in conflict, for me, I don't force clarity. I stay with the tension and I keep asking those better questions, right? Parsing through, what do I want and what do I truly need? What is ego? And what is going to take me toward my overall life vision? And I think that's a really important thing, right? Is to not be so in the weeds that we're not seeing like this decision is actually a step I'm taking toward creating my overall life vision. And I know that's not going to happen by this one move, but is this taking a step forward or not? Right? So give yourself space for holographic thinking. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing you want to do is, and I do this all the time, I prototype before I make a pivot. So prototyping, and this whole model that I teach on this channel is based on the design thinking model for product design that comes out of Stanford University. And basically the ideal life that we want to create is our product, and we are the user, right? Me and my partner, you and your family, or just you, or the people that are impacted by this, right? So you have to really think about, how then can I start to take my big idea, right, or my big vision, and start to prototype those things, to take them and scale them down. Again, I walk you through this in great detail in the book. radicallivingchallenge.com is where you can get it, but I will put a link also, right? But I want to give you an example of what this looks like, right? So when I was done skiing after my accident, so that was like something I had decided for myself, like I am done skiing. I'm done doing these physical things. I had a ski accident in 2020 that was near crippling. I was bedridden for like 9 weeks. I had chronic pain after that I had to try and figure out like what's the root cause of this. And when I finally recovered my ability to be pain-free, I was like, I'm done, right? And when I wanted to explore, like, is this something now that I can do? I didn't go back to the double black diamond, right? Ski to the highest slope, the big ski mountain. I spent a season cross-country skiing, right? I tested my body. I rebuilt my trust. I rewired those confidence neural pathways. I gave myself the space to experiment without the pressure to prove anything. Another example, when my husband and I were like trying to realign our lifestyle, we were living in LA for 25 years. And the big idea was like, let's like sell the house, put everything in storage, live in an RV. I was like, no, I'm not quitting my life in LA. So we took these small experiments. The first one was just renting a Sprinter van for 10 days and seeing what it was like to live together for 10 days, right? So it's really important that you, after you do this holographic thinking, that you start to think about what are some of the prototypes I can create. So doing that in your business, in your life. So if you have this weekly stand-up meeting and it's horrible, right? Like, and it's like the thing that is so soul sucking, like the meeting, right? Try a test group with a new format instead and see if you can make some internal changes that way. If you're dreaming of living abroad, rent for a month or 2 months in different places before you uproot yourself. I have a client who I literally saw yesterday did that. She went to Portugal in one area, then she went for a month, and she traveled to some other countries to see if that was her vibe. And now she's actually going to Portugal to open a bank account and find a place to live, right? So she didn't just chuck it all. She actually went through that prototyping process as I was coaching her through her early retirement, right? So if you need to shift your work, right? Take Fridays off or change the way you stack your meetings for a month and then track your energy and see what changes you can make, right? Control the things you can control. Like actually ask yourself really good questions. What is this experiment for? What do I hope to learn from it? Prototyping. It's playful, it's grounded, it's non-reactive, and it's the bridge between what was and what could be. And that in itself will actually help you calm your nervous system when you tell your amygdala, look, we're not making any big changes, right? We're gonna go through the holographic decision-making process. I've got you. We're gonna set up some prototypes. We're gonna come up with some experiment. We're gonna actually enjoy the process rather than be overwhelmed or paralyzed by it. And then finally, the third thing that I do when I'm going to make a decision is I continue asking what I call these wisdom seeking soul level questions. So that day when I was in Portugal and I was like, should I close down my business? It's like, what should I do? You know, like it's not working. I'm so frustrated. I reached out to a colleague and she asked me, do you love the business that you built? And what I said was, not really, but I think I could squeeze some years out of it. And she said, this is the most misaligned thing I've ever heard you say. And I was like, bro, right? But that question, I love being asked hard questions, right? It's so good to have people in your life that do, because that ripped the lid off what I was avoiding. I didn't really want to quit. I wanted to start telling the truth. And I wanted to build my coaching business based on something that honored all of me, which was so much more than what I used to do as just being a dating and relationship coach. I'm still doing that for lots of people, but at the core of what I was doing was helping people design their dream lives. And I just couldn't be in the box anymore. And I felt constrained by that box, right? And so that's why I felt stuck. I was living life doing work that felt limiting. So it's really important that you ask these wisdom seeking questions and build things that honor all of you, not just one identity that you polish that you put out there for now. So here's some journaling questions. And you can use these as part of your holographic decision making. What is freedom? What is freedom to you? What does freedom feel like in your body? This is a great one. I've done this in groups. What commitments have you made or do you make now that are keeping you stuck? If you could write yourself a permission slip to live an aligned life that you absolutely love, what would that permission slip say? If you have a business or you are working yourself up the corporate ladder, are you building a career or a cage? Are you building a business or a cage? And why? And here's another one. Where am I still trying to earn approval or prove my worth rather than follow what's resonant and aligned to me? When I asked those questions, everything began to shift. Everything, even the permission slip question, right? Because I realized that I had to give myself permission to quit something, right? To give up what was good enough to go for something great. When I started to get those answers, everything began to shift. And it wasn't because I had all the answers. I still had to go through the process of holographic thinking and prototyping and taking action. But I was finally asking the right questions that would actually take me forward. So what I want you to think about is when you have this pressure, right, of I have to make this decision, I want you to really think about that. Asking the question, should I or shouldn't I, is going to keep you stuck in a loop. But if you start to go through this process and you do these 3 steps, you don't have to quit. My final thought, I didn't quit my business that day in Portugal, but I did quit the version of me who thought she had to push and perform and pretend in order to be successful. I reclaimed something else entirely, and that was the right to evolve without having to apologize for it. So before you quit something big, take a pause, breathe, and ask yourself those deeper questions. What if this isn't the end? What if it's the beginning of your next becoming? See you next time.